Welcome back to Next Shift with Rick Wagan. Suzuki doesn't suck. As you can see, I have my guest Stephen Cohen back, and we're going to talk about the Montreal Canadiens. We'll call it a display last night against the New York Rangers. The Montreal Canadiens lost the game 7-2. They faced the New York Rangers, who were undefeated going in, and they're undefeated going out. I think both of us were wrong in our predictions. Steve a little more than I was, and we'll talk about that. And from that perspective, let me kind of give my first 2 cents, and then we can go from there. I actually thought the Montreal Canadiens, believe it or not, came out pretty strong in the first minute. The Canadiens had them kind of pinned in, and it just turned around, and towards the last part of the first minute, they got one chance and put it away. It was a nice shot over Montembeau's shoulder. Not really anything he could have probably done. I mean, it would have been a crazy save if he made it. And it kind of went derailed from there. I still think, the line of Caulfield, Suzuki, and Doc looked good. The line of Kapanen and Armia and Newhook looked good. I actually liked those two lines. Obviously, we were missing Slavkovsky for the game. And then basically, shot after shot went in, and Montembeault, obviously he didn't have the Rocket Richard eyes that we've seen in the previous first two games of the year, and in the last three games he's looked rather pedestrian, unfortunately. I mean, he's not he's not giving up anything terrible, not like the seventh goal by the Rangers last night against Primo, like that was a peewee goal, but he's also not saving like he was in the first couple of games, which again, I didn't expect that. But again, if you want him to be elite and top 5, top 10 goalie in the league, that's what he has to do. So my take is that the Canadiens came out actually pretty well considering, but they just made mistake after mistake. I mean, the back check on the icing with Mailloux and Struble, where they just kind of slowed down and didn't get the icing. It was a terrible goal as if you were watching that. And so the goals were just, mistake, the Hudson mistake, right? He kind of gave up a puck at the blue line and gave up a breakaway. Again, it was a shot that could have been saved. When Montembeault is playing, he makes that save, it was just to his short side. It wasn't a great shot, but it beat him and scored and made Hudson look terrible. And it is what it is. But, all in all, it was a disappointing game. The only thing I guess you can take out of it positive, in my opinion, was Suzuki looked good. Suzuki got 2 goals. He looked like he had his legs for a change. So you have that, that hope. We probably lost Barron for a couple games, or if not more. And you lost Matheson, who defended him for the rest of that game. Not that we really had a chance in the game, although it was 5-2 at the time. You never know. So talking a lot, but I'm disappointed, but not surprised. I'm not on the optimistic side of the house in terms of the Canadiens making the playoffs and doing all these great things. Today, I never was. I thought they would be a better team this year. So far, I think they're the same team as last year. They are missing Laney, and Doc is just not doing what we expected. And Hudson, although he looks good out there, if you look at his numbers, he's not producing goals. He's not really adding pluses to the score sheet like we hoped. Again, he looks great. I'm not blaming him, but he's not adding a layer that's going to drive a lot of value. So that's my 2 cents. 4 minutes in. Steven, I know you've been listening.
Yeah.
What's your take on some of what you saw?
Yeah, I'm taking it all in. Last night was just a complete disaster. I don't really have any positives to take from last night, aside from Suzuki's 2 goals, which I think he needed that. Josh Anderson actually had a good game.
He did.
I missed, in all honesty, I missed the first period, and I rewatched the second period and the third period. Josh Anderson was pretty strong. But Lane Hudson, defensively, either he was made to look bad by Monty, or he just had a very weak game defensively. There were really not a lot of positives to take from the game. I was very disappointed, and they had like you said on our last show, on your last show, the Canadiens have one period where they're just a complete train wreck, and last game it was the first period. Whether it's Monty's fault, the defense's fault, they give up stupid chances, right? The bottom line is they gave up 4 straight goals in like 11 minutes. That's unacceptable in an NHL hockey game. And I'm starting to think that, you made an off-air comment about coaching and about the style of play of the defense. And maybe we should dive into that a little bit because I'm now starting to suspect that maybe the coaching is not there because these players are NHL caliber. And I'm just wondering if MSL is just out of his league and he just doesn't know how to coach
Right.
because maybe they're just not, they don't know how to break out properly, but something's just not right. And I'm just not seeing growth after, in the third year. There should definitely be a little bit of a jump in development, and I'm just not seeing it. I don't know
Right.
what your thoughts are.
No, I mean, so my take on MSL on Martin St. Louis is this. Obviously, I think he's a player's coach, and from a coaching perspective, he did try something last game. Okay, so he put Doc on the first line. It actually didn't look bad. I didn't hate Doc yesterday. I thought he got an assist, but that
Yeah.
that's more because Suzuki did great things. But it was more than that. He actually looked confident. He was doing some good things, and he also brought Kapanen into the second line, and that actually looked really good. So. And then he tried in the first 5 minutes to put a veteran with a rookie, right? He had Hudson with Savard again. He had Mayu
Yeah.
with Struble, and then he had Barron with Matheson, and that just blew up in his face. I mean, I disagree with your comment about Hudson's defense. I thought he played well defensively. He only one goal was his fault. It was a terrible play, and he's young. He's going to make stupid mistakes, and in fact in 5 years from now, he's going to make stupid mistakes. He's not
Right.
an elite defensive defenseman. He's going to give up goals. The problem is he's not producing goals as much as he will be in 3, 4, 5 years,
Right.
and that's going to be the difference, right? That's going to be where the rubber meets the road, and at this point, he's causing more goals than he's creating, but
So,
again, his offense is not the
right.
problem.
So you keep shifting, and we're both like looking at the obvious, which is player, like how are the players producing? Why are the players not producing?
Right.
And we both, like, if you look at the analytics, and you probably have them, and you see how much time the puck is in the defensive zone versus the offensive zone. I haven't looked at those stats. I'm sure you have them, but I'm pretty sure just from the naked
The
eye
eye test, yeah.
that the eye test is that the Canadians are in their own zone probably 60 to 65% of the time, versus, and that's probably being very generous for the
On
from the
five on
remainder of the
five,
team.
that's
On
on five
five
on
on
five.
five, right? Obviously, if you
That's
take
correct.
power play out and you
Yeah,
take the other power play out and you just do 5 on 5,
yeah.
I'd say it's about 60, 65% of the
They're
time the puck is in their defensive zone. And that's a
in
problem, in my opinion. That's just a problem with coaching. You
right.
cannot tell me that that our players are that much worse defensively on the forward side and on the defensive side that they just can't do a proper breakout. So I
Yeah,
understand,
it's not about a
occasionally.
breakout, right? So here, let me comment on this because you're saying what I was saying last show, which is this, okay? And Martin St. Louis knows this. He's not stupid. He's a smart guy. The problem is this. It's pretty straightforward. They have a man-on-man defense, and it's designed to stay inside between the puck, the player, and the net. So you have a lot of young players. You have a lot of young players that don't want to make mistakes. So the only way you can kind of get the puck away from somebody is if you become aggressive on the puck. And so what he's even saying in his interviews today, like if you're listening to his interviews today, that's exactly what he's saying, which is you need to be aggressive in your own end. And so it's going to mean that they're going to have to take some chances, which means that if they miss, there's going to be more scoring chances than there are now. But if they don't miss, they're going to get the puck out faster. And I think that's what he's trying to do. And let's be honest, okay? Martin St. Louis and us, okay? Why are you laughing at me? So Martin St. Louis and us are different. Martin St. Louis is looking at this in 10-day game chunks. He's letting the teams execute. And I think we don't have the patience as fans because we've seen 2-3 years now of bad hockey. And the truth is that they're what 2-4-1, which is not good. That they could be playing themselves out of a playoff spot in the first 10 games. But Martin St. Louis is kind of gradually trying to figure it out. And I disagree with the defensive structure and system in our own end, especially in the second period. But even in the first period, these kids are young. I mean, we have 4 or 5 defensemen that are young, and they're going to make mistakes. But it's not even the defensemen. You have Kapanen, you have Heineman, you have pretty much the entire forward. I counted 7 forwards that were young, right? We only have 5 forwards that have some experience in the NHL, significant experience in the NHL. So when you're playing this man on man and you have a guy like, I don't know, Heineman behind the net, covering the guy that came from the point, and you're stuck, and the other teams know this, so they're moving around. They need to be more aggressive, like a forecheck in their own end. And so if they're going to keep that system. So what I'm trying to say is, in a very short perspective, is I'm not off of the Martin St. Louis bandwagon in terms of coaching. I just think the players need to execute what he's saying, and they're not yet, because I think they're just too young, to be honest, and they're trying to figure it out.
So you think that, I mean, listen, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt there. Like, you're looking at, it's a very glass half full statement to say that Marty knows what he's doing, and they're just, listen.
I mean, they're professional coaches on the,
Agreed,
listen,
agreed,
not just Martin, right? He has assistant coaches that have been there for a while. So it's not like.
But a coach's job is not only to understand what needs to be done, but he needs to kind of like get them to do that. And he's failing. And right now, listen, it's early. It's 7 games in, but up to this point, he's they're 2-4-1. They look atrocious. They look, honestly, Rick, they look worse than they did last year. Even though the results are probably the same, or maybe they were a little bit better last year, but the team just doesn't look good. They're lucky that they even have 2 wins. Both of them, Monty stood on his head in order to get one of the wins, for sure. The other one, fine. Maybe chalk it up as 1 win. But right now, they look like a very bad team.
Right. I mean, listen, I'm not gonna defend the Canadiens right now, because I'm not on their bandwagon either. But I'm not pulling the panic button, because they're 7 games into the season, right? So from my perspective, it's not about a benefit of the doubt. I think the Canadians are trying a new system, and it's not figured out yet. And so, do you pull the ripcord on it and just kind of play a different style? No. And give up, or do you keep going and try to teach the young kids to do it? So I understand the Montreal Canadian fans. I'm one of them. Wants the Canadians to win, okay, and that's part of it, right? He's creating a system and trying to teach these guys to play a certain way. But remember, we lost Gooley, we lost Laney, Slavkovsky was out. They're already kind of. And they've just played a team that's probably slated to play in the Stanley Cup finals, right?
Let's not lose sight of the fact that Marty St. Louis coached Pee Wee. Yeah, but that's his experience. Well, hold on, just hear me out for a second. He coached Pee Wee hockey as his experience before taking on an NHL team, and yes.
It might have been Bantam.
Sorry,
I said it might have been Bantam. It might have been Bantam.
Okay, maybe midget or Bantam. But my point is that his experience in coaching was pretty much 0. Yep. And don't get me wrong, he came in and he had success because he inherited. Let's face it. We all agree he inherited a very, very bad team, and the team just quit on the coach. And I don't think this team is quitting on the coach. And they're young, but let's just not lose sight of the fact that if there's no improvement, and again, I'm not trying to seal the fate of doom on the Canadians for the first 7 games of the season, but if we don't see improvement over the next 20 games, you got to start asking the question.
No, but it's 7 games, 20 games. No, that's fine.
You pull the cord on the entire thing, and
I,
and change course, because
I
obviously
don't.
this is potentially not working.
Yeah,
So
so I don't think the Canadians fire Martin St. Louis this year. I think the Canadians are not expected to make the playoffs. I know there's fans that want to make the playoffs. I'm one of them, but they went from 76 points. The odds of that team, and there's a lot. It's not that they're not. It's not that they're not good. There's just a lot of good teams that are getting better too, right? And there's a lot of teams that are good that are not going to get much worse. So it's just it's not just the level of their team, but it's the competition. But
Rick, sorry to interrupt you, but here's my concern. Okay, I've seen it now with multiple players. I'm going to give you examples. Kovacevic gets traded. I like Kovacevic. Don't get me wrong. Gets
yeah,
traded, and now the guy looks like an all-star. Not an all-star, but he looks good on another team. Every player that, let's look at the guy on the Avalanche, Lehkonen,
Lekin,
right?
right.
Lehkonen is on our team, and he looks like a decent player. Don't get me wrong, I love Lehkonen, right? As a decent middle of the road player. He goes to the Avalanche and he becomes a superstar. And
I
then you
mean,
start looking
you
at
can
other
you
players that just go to the other teams. Even there was a defenseman, I forget his name, that he was like the seventh defenseman, and he I think it was last year or the year before, and then suddenly the guy is like a top four defenseman on another team. Why is this happening? Why are players that are under Martin St. Louis for a period of time, they can't do the job, or
I
we
mean,
think they can't do the job? They go to another team, and then suddenly they're very good. So
so
there's something to be said about that, Rick.
yeah. Well, I can flip that and say Kovacevic was on the Winnipeg Jets and was waived and jumped on the Canadians and did a great job for the Canadians. He wasn't bad, so he improved from that year and he's developing. Montembeault was waived from Florida. He wasn't. He was brought on the Canadians. He's improved. Listen,
Montembeault
there's
was waived because they had Devin at the time. They had Devin Levi at the time,
Okay,
right?
but
They
but it's
also
but it's
had
but they waived them, but they
Bobrovsky,
gave
and they
up
had
on him.
another great goalie.
Just like you guys want to give up on Primo, and then if he goes somewhere else, he'll probably be good. The point I'm getting at is this, right? Like you have the other side of the fence of guys like Drouin who don't really get better, or I can name
Oh, that
people.
I mean, we can all agree that that was. I mean, that
But
yeah,
again, that was Bergevin, right? So like you also have to understand. So let's not go all there, but like I don't really agree that he's not developing the players well. I think Slavkovsky's improved every year. Caulfield is looking really good this year and has become a full-time player. Suzuki's gotten better every the last 2 or 3 years. Doc has been injured, so like we can't count
right.
him. And then there's the other players are not
But
young, right?
they're getting beat every game, and
Well,
every
they're not
game
good
it's
yet. They're young. Steve,
yeah.
Steve, I'm watching two teams. I'm a two-team player, right? I watch the Canadians and I watch the Ducks. They're the same team. They're the same team. They have three lines that are good. And the Canadians actually have four, so the Canadians are better. But they have three lines that are good, but their best players are all under 22 years old. And you watch them, and they're doing the same things. They're making the same mistakes. It's
Right.
it's 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 a faster game. Like you're expecting a kid that's 22, like a Heineman or what do you call it? All the defensemen. It's a fast game, and these guys and they're facing Panarin and Kreider and Zibanejad and Matthews. You name the guy, right? And so I'm telling you that that's the point that why fans need to be patient because the Canadians are going to be there. There's some players on this team that are going to be 25, 26, 27. And if that point they're not playing the way they should be,
Yeah.
then you got to be there. But from my perspective, if MSL played the same lines, didn't switch to defenseman after the first 5 minutes and try to get a change of pace, didn't communicate at the end of the meeting, at the end of the game in his interviews that he was trying to get the players to be more aggressive in their own end, and then he said, listen, after the fifth goal, the air came out of our balloons, and it was a weak goal. And to your point earlier, Primo did well for a period, but when he let in that fifth goal, everyone, they were pressing. We were outplaying them from 4-0 to 4-2 for about 20 minutes,
Right.
except for the chances they got, and the chances were saved by by Primo. He did a good job, and then he let in a weak goal, and the team gave up a little bit. And the third period was kind of just let's get through this, and there was some injuries and other things that happened. But and so, end of the day, from my perspective, I'm not down on the team itself long term. I'm not down on Martin St. Louis long term. I don't think this team was going to make the playoffs. I hope they're going to be. Right now, they look worse or the same as last year, and that has to improve.
Right. So for me, again, it's not about the wins. If the team looked good and then they lost,
well, who's not improving? Who's not improving? Who's not improving?
Give me. It's the outcome, Rick, and the way they're playing.
But,
For me, it's the puck in their own zone. You cannot be successful in this league when you're playing with the puck. And let's get that stat. Maybe you can find that stat.
No, it's Arpon. There's stats. I mean, every line he does it by line, not the whole team. I mean, the Gallagher line, which is veteran, believe it or not, is the best line, right? The Evans, Gallagher, and Anderson are getting the puck out the least amount of time in their own end, and it's because they're the veterans, right? That's my point. The other lines, and it literally goes in order. The second best line is the first line, probably because they're the best line of skills. And then the disappointing line is the Newhook, Armia, and Doc line. That's been terrible in their own end, as well as whoever's the fourth line.
That's my frustration with this team. You will not win a hockey game or many hockey games if you don't improve in that area.
They know that, but it's only been 4 games of bad games.
But
it's 4
every
games.
game, even the games they won.
They've been. You're right, but they first of all played the Boston Bruins after a day with overnight without a break, and then they played Toronto, which was a home opener. They're a good team. You can't just say they're bad. Ottawa they beat, and they beat for real, and then they just been on a streak of Pittsburgh, Islanders, Kings, and now
they played
Rangers.
Well against the Islanders. They played well against the Islanders.
They played okay, but again, they had that second period where it just was not good. So listen. I mean, listen. I agree with you. I'm not defending the Canadians. I'm disappointed that they're not better than they were last year. The fortunate thing for me is there was one game, the Kings game, where I said, "Holy shit, they're worse than last year," and I think they're not that. I think they're somewhere in between, the same as last year or better, but the better hasn't happened yet, other than one game. And so the Canadians need to improve. They need to get better goaltending, and that's a risk. I know you love Montembeault, but I'm not sold on him being a number one goalie. The good news is I had a long conversation with Cutter Gautier's parents, and they were very, very keen on telling me how Jake Fowler is the next coming. So and they know hockey because they've been playing with a lot of good players. And
where is
so
Jake Fowler now? Is he in?
He's still in BC. He's still at Boston College. Cutter played with him for 1 year, and he played on the world the world junior team with him. And the end of the day, that kid is a superstar potential. So it's probably a couple of years away, and we say that, but Primo and Devin Levy and other goalies were really good in the NCAA. So they still have to prove themselves. But Lane Hudson was really good in the NCAA, and he looks really good. Cutter Gauthier, there's other players like Rutger McGorty and now even Seamus Casey who are being sent to the minors. So who knows, right? So from that perspective, from my perspective, the Canadians are still 1 or 2 years, one year away from the playoffs. By the way, I watched Demidov this morning. The kid is insane. He was getting ice time. He only got 11 minutes. He got 11 minutes of ice. So that's less than a quarter of ice time. And he got 4 assists, all primary. Half the time and at the KHL with man playing with Kuznetsov. So he's a good hockey player.
Question. What do you think? So what is your take on how a coach affects the outcome of a game? So here's my question to you.
Yeah.
If you take Marty St. Louis right now with the same group of players, same exact group of players. Yep. If I replace Marty St. Louis with another coach, let's say I replace them with Paul Maurice.
Yep.
Right? Who just won the Stanley Cup, who's always he's been a very successful coach.
Yep.
Right? And I put Paul Maurice on this team.
Yep.
And I have him coach with the same exact players. Do you actually believe that it's going to be the exact same results, or do you think that there would be improvement, we play worse? What are your thoughts? I'm just curious.
I mean, in a 4-game window, yes, it would be the same.
Not a 4-game window.
But that's what it is.
Give Maurice 30 games.
Well,
Maurice
give
30
Martin
games.
St. Louis 40 games with this team. So the answer is I don't know the answer because I haven't seen it. What I can say is you're picking one of the best coaches in the NHL. So it's probably going to be better. So it's
He
probably
was available 3 years ago when we got Martin.
I don't think he speaks French well enough for Montreal. That's another problem. So that's you got to you. That's not my. I'm not going to go there. But what I am going to say is this, right? Paul Maurice is an excellent coach. I'm not saying he's going to do worse than Martin St. Louis, but in a 4-game span, the last 4 games, that could happen to any coach. How does a coach influence the game? They influence it by the lines they choose, the players they play, the way they play those players, what they communicate in terms of what's important, what systems they put into place, how they discipline the team, how they make sure the team is in place. Martin St. Louis, I have not given up on it. He's a very, very smart hockey mind. He knows his hockey better than, he knows what he's doing. He's a very articulate person. He's a smart person. He's been successful in the NHL. I'm not worried about him actually being a coach. I think he's going to be a coach for a long time, whether he's on the Canadiens or somebody else.
Look at coaches players that have been successful in the NHL that have been horrible coaches. I'm going to give you 2. Okay. Larry Robinson.
He wasn't horrible. Right? He wasn't horrible. I could say great. He was on the range. He did well on the Devils. He's been a very good defense.
Bob Gainey was.
He's been good again. He wasn't on the Canadiens, but he was good when he was in. I think he was in Dallas or Minnesota. He was in Dallas, and he had a good couple of years. And then and Larry Robinson was good in New Jersey. I disagree. I thought you were going to go as Wayne Gretzky, but again,
Wayne Gretzky is another example.
But that's different. Like it depends on the kind of player you were. Martin St. Louis was a non-drafted, player, 5'8" if you're lucky, that worked his butt off to make it to the NHL and used his mind to make it happen. Wayne Gretzky was a super skilled player that spent 50,000 hours when he was 20, before he was 12, to figure out the game. It's a different mentality, different thing. You can't chalk it up. Most NHL coaches were hockey players in the past at some point, and most of them, half of them or more, were in the NHL and played. Whether you were a fighter or you were this, he was a leader. He was a captain or assistant captain of his teams. He was he won cups. He led in the room. He's a motivating person. People fight for him. I don't think that's the problem. It's 4 games in. I think the problem is the Canadians are young, and the Canadian. It's not even 4 games because there was 3 games that we played, and I think the first 3 games wasn't that bad. The last 4 games have been less good. Let's put it that way. And from my perspective, the Canadians need to address it's not an elephant in the room. He needs to either get them to play their defensive system better, which is what he's saying, or change his defensive system if he wants to win. Now, I say that with that last sentence because the Canadians don't need to win to have a successful season this year. I don't think the Canadians need to win. They need to win more than they did last year, so they need to be a 500 team or better, but they don't need to be an NHL playoff team this year.
Let me tell you, right now, they're nowhere close to a 500 team. This is not a 500 team. So let's see. It's early.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But what I see with the eye test right now is that it's worse.
I'm not defending it.
Is worse than last year.
Yeah.
So
okay, fair enough. I'm not going to defend it. If it becomes worse than last year, again, the team's different than last year a little bit, right? There's some changes, like you said. Kovacevic is gone. There's they're trying to play.
Minus Monahan. Monahan was a very.
They had different players, but again, they tried to get Line to replace them, and again, that's not a. They were not going to re-sign Monahan. They were not going to re-sign these guys. These guys. Montreal is a place for either aging veterans that are trying to find a new life, and he already found it, or it's young guys that are trying to find get drafted or traded for. So, end of the day, I like what Doc looked like. I like what Suzuki looked like. Caulfield's been playing well. The defense made mistakes, and that has to be fixed. Goulie's going to come back. We lost Barron.
When is Goulet?
He's injured. He's not practicing yet, so he's still injured. Now Barron's injured.
I think that's a very big loss because he added muscle and defense, and
Yeah, I don't know
he
who's
helped
going to
with the
play next
breakout.
game. The next game is going to be interesting because they have to bring somebody else up because that's where they're at. So is it Engstrom? Is it? I mean, they're going to have Jack Eye back in the thing and Barron out. I guess that's what they could do. So they can keep the same lineup with Jack Eye. No, no, we lost Barron and yeah, and Mayu I guess would still be there. Okay, yeah, so they can just replace Barron with Jack Eye and keep going. I guess. All right. Listen, Slavkovsky should be day to day. He should be back soon. Gouli is probably he's still not practicing, so I doubt he'll play for. We don't know what the problem is. Barron's probably gone for a week. Montembeau
On the
has to
good,
play better.
there is some good news. Let's talk about injuries. Right, aside from the defense, the forwards have been pretty healthy. So
I
more or
mean, if you
less,
count
right?
Laine and Slavkovsky, but
Well,
yes,
Laney, forget about Lane. Laney is a different story, but the rest of the team, by
we
this
think
time last year, we'd have like another couple of
not seven
forwards that were
games.
out. So,
It
so
wasn't
there's
that
the
bad. I disagree. I don't think it was that bad. But anyway, okay. Listen, next game is on Saturday.
yeah,
I forget even who they're playing. Do
St.
you remember?
Louis,
St.
St.
Louis.
Louis. I even
St.
looked it
Louis
up.
is another team that they're not a bad team. So that'll be interesting. They have 3 days to practice. The Canadians are and funnily enough, if you listen to the interviews, Martin St. Louis is focusing on the defensive zone coverage and being more aggressive. So if that works, good. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like you said, he's a young coach, so but he has veteran coaches around him that are helping him kind of build that up. So I'm not throwing it all on him. I think it's a combination of a coach that's figuring it out with a bunch of young kids that are figuring it out that are showing their age and they need to at least they tried hard. They just made a lot of mistakes in the first part of the game last game. That's all.
All right. Well, I'm not going to make a prediction because I'm not very good at it. So I'll just say this: that I'm hoping for a better effort on Saturday. I'm looking forward to like a better. I want to see. I'd like to get for the next time that I'm on and that I'm invited on. I'd like to see the stats on how much how long the Canadians have the puck in the offensive zone versus the defensive zone. Maybe we can dig that up somewhere. I'm hoping for. Listen, I don't care if they win or lose next game. I want to see, like, I want to see them dictate the play. I saw them do it last year, and that's why I was very encouraged.
Right.
And I'm not just I'm encouraged because I just don't see that. That's a sign that the team is developing, even if you're not scoring goals. So I want to see, I want to see them take the play. I want to see them dictate the play.
Right.
So that's what I'm hoping for.
I mean, those stats are terrible now. Well, you can't really change the past. So yeah, I mean, you're not going to see anything that doesn't replicate what your eye test is. They're 32nd in the league in defensive zone time. They're 32nd in the league in chances. They're over 60% on most of their lines in terms of defensive zone 5-on-5. They're not playing well. So yes, you're going to see that. So the problem is and that was worse than last year. Now the question that what has changed is a couple of defensemen, a couple of forwards that didn't re-sign, and basically a system that he's trying to put into place. So he's trying something, it's not working. What do? Do you wait 10 games to see if it works? I think that's what he's doing. If it doesn't work, they might change something. I might have changed something faster, but
you better. I'll just give this is a word of caution. This is Montreal, and I understand it's a rebuild, and I understand they're giving them runway. But
you don't.
Here's the big but. But is at one point they're going to pull the cord on these guys. So
I mean, Martin St. Louis has a long cord. I think the 10-game window, I think they've talked about that in interviews. So it's not going well, the first 10 games. So that we'll see what they do after that. But there's going to be a change. I don't think it's a change going to be dramatic. I think it's going to be more system and lines and stuff like that than coaching or trades, big trades or anything. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think there might be trades. I mean, players are, there's players like Jack Eye. There's players like like some of the forwards that might be playing well. Let's say call it Josh Anderson or something like that, who's playing well and might have some more value. So there might be trades to shake it up, but I think it's going to be more about line changes and system changes. But they're going to wait 10 games. I would have waited faster. I would have done it faster.
I just hope this. I hope if they make a change, it's the coach and not the players. I believe in
They're not
Suzuki.
changing the coach. They're not changing the
I
coach.
believe in Caulfield. I believe in some of the young players. Trading away those young players for other young players could set us back even worse. So I hope they don't go that
I don't
route.
think they're going to trade.
So,
I don't think they're going to trade other than Jack Eye. And the only reason why I say Jack Eye is on the block is because he just is in the doghouse with Martin St. Louis and the team. He hasn't been really performing well. I love the guy as a player, but I haven't seen him play well. And he has a value in the league. So, and they have 17 left defensemen in their program, right? So I'm not saying that's the, he'll never be a top 4 defenseman on the Canadians. As long as you have Gooley and Hudson, and those are your top 2 left shooting defensemen, Jack Eye is never gonna jump into that top 4 unless he's one of those guys play on the right side, which could happen. But there's a lot of people coming, and there's even more to come. So again, I think guys like that might be looked at in the first 10 games, after the first 10 games, but not, guys like Gallagher, guys like Evans, they're playing well. And if the Canadians feel like they're not, maybe it's 20 games and they're out of it, they're going to have, poker chips to play it with to fix their team for next year, which, is something they're going to try to do potentially. So we'll see. I'm not, again, I hope they change their way and make their changes and play well and start winning games and at least competing, like you said. But they're not doing it right now. So I agree. Anyway, we've been talking a long time. Anything else before you want to?
No, let's, I'm just eager to, I want to see some good hockey on Saturday, good effort. And let's see what comes.
Yeah, worst case scenario, wake up early, watch the KHL. There's some good hockey over there. There's a kid named Demidov doing well. So, all right. By the way, he looks a lot like Hudson did. So he has a very similar game to Hudson, but he's a forward and he's bigger. So he's like almost 6'1", 6'2" now. So he's growing. So it's good. All right, guys. All right. That's it for me. That's it for us. Steven, anything else before we go?
No, all right. Thank you very much, Rick.
All right. That's it for Next Shift with Rick Wagan. And now Suzuki does not suck. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.